Okay, welcome to the board meeting of the Structural Pest Control Board. This meeting is being held on October 10th, 2023, and the time is now 9:03 a.m. We will now establish a quorum. Sophia, can you please do a roll call?
Good morning. Yes. President Finley.
Here.
Vice President Anderson. Here. Board Member Paxson.
Here.
And Board Member Tingen.
Here.
We have 4 members present. We have a quorum. And for the record, Board Member Thrasher and Dr. Bindal are absent.
Okay, thank you. With a quorum established, we will now move on to our next agenda item, Pledge of Allegiance. If you guys could stand, face the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda item 3. Does the public have any comments that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, we can close. Okay. We'll go into agenda item number 4. It's a petition for reinstatement. The purpose of this hearing today is for the board to consider a petition for reinstatement from Bernardo Garcia. I will now turn the meeting over to the administrative law judge to begin the hearing.
All right, thank you, President Finley. Good morning to you, Mr. Harris and Mr. Garcia. And if you could kindly use your microphones, and that way we can kind of pick up everything that you say.
The button down at the bottom.
Okay, you want to do a quick sound check there?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, good morning to you. All right, let's go ahead and get on the record in the first petition. I'm going to go ahead and call the case. We are here before the board, the Structural Pest Control Board to review 2 petitions this morning. The first matter is with Mr. Garcia, Bernardo M. Garcia. This is Structural Pest Control Board case number 2019-6 and OAH case number 2023-090-023. My name is Danette Brown, and I am an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings assigned to hear these petition matters. A quorum of the board is present. May take the appearances of the Deputy Attorney General, please.
Good morning, Your Honor and members of the board. Stephanie Lee, Deputy Attorney General, on behalf of the Attorney General's Office. Section 1152.
All right, thank you, counsel. And Mr. Harris, if you could introduce yourself for the record, please.
Yes, of course, Judge Brown. Good morning, members of the board. Scott, counsel for Bernardo Garcia, your petitioner who's sitting to my left.
All right, thank you both. Good morning to you, Ms. Lee and Mr. Harris, and of course, Mr. Garcia. All right, before we get it, I'm going to go ahead and put Mr. Garcia under oath. So if you could please raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Garcia, if you could please state and spell your name for the record.
Bernardo Garcia, BernardoGarcia.
All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Lee, your opportunity to provide a brief orientation of the case and any documents you wish to submit.
Thank you, Your Honor. The matter before the board this morning with respect to Mr. Garcia is a petition for reinstatement of his field representative's license 47991 in Branch 3, as well as his applicator's license RA 52952, again in Branch 3. The reason Mr. Garcia is here today is because of a revocation of his license that occurred back in 2019. Mr. Garcia initially was issued both of his licenses as probationary licenses back in 2012. After 2012, he suffered an accusation with the board, case number 2019-6. The basis of that accusation was a number of substantially related convictions, substantially related conviction, singular, which occurred in 2017 in LA County. He essentially pled guilty to possession of a controlled substance with a firearm, possession of methamphetamine for sale, possession of a firearm by a felon, possession of an assault weapon, possession of ammunition, and was placed on probation for 3 years. The underlying facts of that accusation: in 2017, the police conducted a search warrant of his house, found 2 semi-automatic handguns, a semi-automatic rifle, over $100,000 in cash, and 3 bags, each containing 310 grams of methamphetamine. The reason he was a felon in possession of the firearms and ammunition was because he had sustained a number of convictions from 2000 and 2009. After a hearing before the board on the accusation, both of his licenses were revoked on May 23rd, 2019. There was cost recovery associated with that accusation in the amount of $1,945, which the court at the time had issued to be paid on a payment plan approved by the board. If the licenses are reinstated after this hearing, the board would ask that the full cost recovery be a part of those new issued licenses. And Your Honor, I'm ready to go over the exhibit book whenever the court is.
Please proceed.
We've put together as Exhibit 1 collectively. We'll start with the jurisdictional documents, which includes the board's letter confirming today's hearing date, Mr. Garcia's confirmation of attendance, and then we move on to the petition and related documents, which includes the board's letter to the petition regarding the guidelines for this petition, Mr. Garcia's actual petition for reinstatement, which includes his request for both, again, the field representative's license as well as the applicator's license, his declaration, as well as his live scan service completion. He's also submitted a number of pieces of rehabilitation evidence, which includes his attorney's cover letter, the petition for reinstatement pleading. It's a duplicative, but it was included as a part of the packet. His personal narrative, a termination letter from his criminal probation department showing successful completion of probation, as well as letters of recommendation. Following that, the Exhibit 1 has the prior decision and order from the accusation to 2019-6. It includes the decision and order, it includes the accusation, the stipulation it includes the original stipulation that had issued his probationary licenses back in 2012. It includes character reference letters from that previous disciplinary hearing in 2019, and then the board's memorandum regarding the outstanding costs just mentioned. And finally, we have the certified license history, which shows the history of his applicators and field representatives' licenses.
All right, all of the documents are going to be collectively marked as Exhibit 1 and will be admitted unless, of course, Mr. Harris has any objection. No?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, any comment on any of the documents?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, very good. Exhibit 1 is admitted. All right, anything else, Ms. Lee?
No, thank you.
Very good. Okay, we're going to turn it over to you, Mr. Harris, for presentation of petitioner's case.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. May I make a brief statement?
Please.
Thank you very much. Again, Your Honor, members of the board, thank you for your time today. Mr. Garcia comes before you extraordinarily humbled and somewhat embarrassed by his past. But we are here to evaluate what has occurred in the 4 years since he lost his licensure with the board, and in the 3 years since he has been off of criminal probation. I bring your board to its attention the past decision that it made, revoking his license. And despite the revocation, the board found that at his prior hearing, Mr. Garcia was sincere and credible, that he expressed great remorse in the conduct that he had engaged in that led to your revocation of his license, and that he was on a path that the board invited him to stay on for success. We believe that in the 4 years since the passage of his, in the 4 years that have passed, since the loss of his licensure, he has continued on that path. And in the evidence before you today, both the documentary evidence, which includes his letters of reference, his ongoing support from his employer at FEN, and his ongoing community involvement with both the church and coaching young children in sports. He is someone who has earned the right to be a licensed member of your community once again. I will defer to Ms. Brown and the board as to whether you'd like me to ask him questions first, or if you would like to jump in and ask him questions. But you will find in Mr. Garcia someone very willing and able to communicate his remorse and his respect for you and why he wants his licensure back. We again thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, counsel. And will Mr. Garcia be testifying, or?
Yes, Your Honor, and I just know from my experience that some boards like to jump in and ask questions on their own, and some would prefer me to handle it like a typical trial matter. So I will defer to you and the board in that manner.
Thank you so much for your deference. All right, Mr. President, how would you like to proceed? Would you like the board to ask questions of the petitioner, or do you want to hear from the petitioner first in perhaps a statement?
Hear from the petitioner and Ms. Lee first.
Okay, so the board will hear from petitioner first, and then the board will commence with questioning.
Very good. May I, instead of statement, can we do it in question-answer format from
You
me
bet.
and Mr. Garcia?
You bet.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you. Mr. Garcia, just so that we're all on the same page, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Just feeling blessed to be presented this opportunity. And of course, you know, a little nervous, I'm not going to lie. Big hearing. This hearing's decision is going to weigh heavily on my career path, and it's just very, very important to me.
Can you please tell us, how old are you today?
I'm 42 years old.
And are you married?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any children?
Yes, I have 3 daughters and a son.
How old are they?
I have a 8-year-old daughter, a 12-year-old daughter, 21-year-old daughter, and a 20-year-old son.
Do they know that you're here today?
Yes, they do.
And do they know your history with the board?
They do. My younger ones, of course, it's kind of hard for them to wrap their heads around, but my older son and daughter do know.
Very good. Let's talk about your licensure for a moment. When were you first licensed by the Structural Pest Control Board?
It was 2012. I acquired my applicator's license, and I believe within a month and a half later, I obtained my Branch 3 field reps.
And when you first applied, did you have to disclose a prior criminal record to the board?
Yes, I did.
Just so that the record is clear, what was that criminal record that you had to disclose?
It was there was a number of charges stemming back to, I believe, 18 years old. I had there was a lot of, do you want me to name them one by one?
Why don't you? That would be great.
Okay, so I believe I pled guilty to a car burglary that I pled out to when I was 18, and then was placed on, I think, a suspended sentence. After that, I was in an unfortunate accident where my best friend died because of reckless driving that I was doing. And after that charge, after that charge, it was, I think, possession of a knife, and then receiving stolen property. I think those were the That's the order it went in.
Thank you. And as a result of those crimes, did you have to serve time in prison?
Yes, I did, on 3 occasions, for the manslaughter charge, where my best friend died. They sentenced me to 5 years. I ended up doing 38 months on that one. Was incarcerated from 2002 to 2005. And then for the cases that came after that, the knife and the receiving stolen property, I served 8-month terms for each of them.
And as you look back at your convictions today, what was the driving factor behind them?
It was drug use, methamphetamines, just not having not regarding my life or anything around me. It was mainly methamphetamine.
Do you currently use methamphetamine?
No, I do not.
Do you have a sobriety date?
Yes, I do. It's May 9th of 2010, which is also my mother's birthday.
And as a result of having to disclose the convictions you suffered, the board gave you licenses anyways, is that correct?
Yes, they gave me the opportunity to obtain those licenses and put me on a probationary license.
Do you recall how long that probationary term was?
I believe it was 5 years.
And during that 5-year period, did you ever have any probation violations?
I did not.
And for whom did you work when you were on probation with the board?
Fen Termite and Pest Control out of Buena Park.
Do you recall when you first started with Fen?
I believe the end of 2011 as a wood crew laborer.
And when did your employment end, if it did, with Fen?
It did not. It continued up and to this day.
We'll get to your work with Fen today in a moment, but I want to talk to you about your ongoing licensure during that period. Is that when you suffered your convictions as articulated by Ms. Lee during her opening?
Yes, it was during that, yeah. After, I think, probation, I got through the 5-year probation. I think it was almost within months of me getting off that probation.
And one of the crimes that Ms. Lee articulated, and which is in your history, is one that involves the possession of methamphetamine. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you testified that you have a sobriety date, and so that the board is clear, were you using methamphetamine at that time?
I was not.
Can you please talk to us about the conviction that you suffered in 2017, as Ms. Lee has articulated, involving the possession of firearms, methamphetamine, and other similar crimes?
Yeah. So it was, I think, May of 2017. They had a search warrant for my house, apartment at the time. And, everything stipulated in there. They found methamphetamine, an assault rifle, and I believe 2 handguns and a large amount of cash. I acquired all that by selling methamphetamine. So I had my stable job. I was paying child support, and I just felt like it was an uphill battle to gain traction financially at the time. So I was sober. I was in my right mind. I'm not gonna lie. I was, totally coherent of what I was doing, and at the same time made a dumb decision to step in the direction of selling methamphetamine to make a side profit. And with that came the acquirement of money and, of course, the protection of myself, the money, the drugs, and people would actually sell me the firearms or trade me the firearms for the methamphetamine. So before you know it, I had a stockpile of, weapons, which I don't know if you want to call it I acquired quite a few weapons and had them in my apartment, and the money, and actually the methamphetamine trade at the time or whatever, the sales, they went stagnant for me because I had a job. I didn't have time to be out there hustling like I thought I would be able to. It went, for lack of better words, good for a minute, and then it went stagnant. So I felt like I was stuck with the large amount of methamphetamines in these guns, and I really wasn't dabbling in it towards the end. But at that time, I believe somebody informed on me, and that was the reason for the search warrant. So, it was just me not having a proper understanding of how to level up in life, how to acquire a house. For me, it was like save money and get a house. Now I know better. You have to have a track record for that money. You can't just throw, money at a realtor and say, oh, I want that house. But I didn't have, I would say, my mother and my father came from a poor upbringing as well as myself. So I didn't have somebody that lived a structured life to explain that to me. So I wouldn't veer on that idiotic path of trying to hustle and make money and advance myself in life. So that was a very dumb decision on my behalf, uneducated decision that was money driven. And coming back to think about it, being sober, having my sobriety date, not dabbling into drugs and doing this while I was straight edge, it was the money. When I sit back and reflect, I had a lot of time to reflect. It's the money that I felt I was addicted to. The money, the fast money, it coming in, and these goals that I thought I was going to accomplish with this dirty money. That's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. As a result of the convictions, were you sentenced by the criminal court to some sort of time or?
I was. I believe I was facing, because I have a record. I was facing 17 years was my max sentence, which I could have been sentenced to. So by the grace of God, the Judge Porras, that was overseeing my case, he told me straight out, looked me in the eye and told me, I don't do this for many people, but because I can see you know how to live the bad life and the good life, you're doing both. You have the capability to do both. You just do. He said, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to suspend your sentence for 8 years. So I had 8 years hanging over my head, and he let me go home on probation. But he told me, if you mess this opportunity up, I'm going to be jaded and not give it to the next man that comes in front of me that is somewhat in your predicament. So I felt, and of course my obligation to my family, my company that kept me employed, it was just like God presented me blessing after blessing to open my eyes and really key and focus in on how good my life was already and how I was marring it by trying to step in God's way and create my own path. So, lastly, he blessed me with the suspended sentence that I knew I was going to ace because of where my mind state was. But that's basically how I didn't end up doing time when I fully should have. I was already prepared to go in, but I am.
So you're sitting before the board today. Is it fair to say that you have not suffered any other convictions?
I have not even a citation, traffic citation, nothing. I live my life straight edge, and it's just it's a lifetime goal of mine now to stay straight edge and to be an upstanding citizen, not only for, I would say, the community I live in, but my son, my daughters, my family, younger family members that look up to me, my church brothers and sisters, the kids I coach in softball, the boards I interact with, and just just to be the man that I feel good to be, not the man that I feel forced to be, as I was in my past.
You've just told the board a lot, so I want to break it down just very quickly. You mentioned some of your involvement in the community and church. Do you still go to church?
I do.
And the board previously found that you were deeply religious. Do you remain deeply religious?
I do, even more so. And yeah, even more so. I mean, every day, every morning is another blessing. And, you know, before I leave the house, it's just, you know, I'm thanking God for another day, because it's look, every evening before I go to sleep and every morning I wake up, I think about everything I've overcome and all the blessings God has put in my path and continues to do, when I'm not worthy of it. From a lot of things I've done and stuff, I have a guilty heart, you know. I really feel guilty and remorseful about things I've done, and every blessing I get is just another pat on the back from God, you know, letting me know, you know, stay on this path that I've put in front of you. You know, he reassures me in small ways that I'm doing what he wants me to do. I'm doing his work.
And I just want the record to be clear for the board. What church do you go to?
South Bay Abundant Life Church in Long Beach.
And who's the senior pastor there?
Jerome Vincent Carter.
And he's someone who wrote you a letter, is that correct?
He is. He's a good friend of mine as well, not just my pastor.
And you also mentioned some involvement with the community. I think you mentioned that you were a coach for children?
Yes, to this day.
What type of work do you do?
It's called Norwalk Girls Fast Pitch Softball. I coach, I would say, I've coached my daughter's team. I've coached even teams when my daughter broke her collarbone and couldn't play. The board, because, you know, you go through your background check and everything, and, you know, I'm a trusted parent to go to any team and help. And I know so many of the coaches, if they are lacking a coach, I volunteer. I'm okayed through the board to go to any team to help with any kind of fielding practice, batting practice. I can go into a game and be the base coach, or in the dugout with the girls, because I'm an approved coach, and it's just something. I have a passion for baseball since I was a kid. Transitioning it to softball and the girls it's just a blessing. Yeah.
Do you have any other involvement in the community you would like to share?
I do. You know, if convalescent ministry at church, I go to Santa Fe Convalescent Home in Long Beach that's right down the street. And, you know, I was going really strong before COVID, but they shut down all the convalescent homes after COVID. So I'm getting my foot back into the door, and it's just, I've done that as a Boy Scout as a kid, is go to the convalescent homes. And, you know, a lot of the elderly they're put in those convalescent homes and they're forgot about, you know. And my grandparents that I was very close to and I miss, I get that feel from them when I go, and I preach sermons to them. I preach sermons to them, and I comfort them, and even though they ain't always coherent, they get to feel God's love.
Very good. Let's move to your petition. Why do you want your licensure back from the board?
I want it back to continue my career goals. I was licensed in the Branch 3 area and the applicators area, and I have a love for pest control, for, you know, wood destroying organism inspecting. And I had goals prior to me veering off the path and trying to make that quick money, and I want to reestablish those goals and get, you know, the opportunity to be reinstated to move forward with those goals of being, you know, multi-licenses. I want to get my Branch 2, my Branch 3, and stay universal and well-rounded, so I can be more of a benefit to the company and help with the growth.
And you said to the company, is that Fenn?
That is Fenn, yeah.
And you've continued to work for Fenn over the last several years, is that correct?
Yes, I have.
What type of work have you done for Fenn?
So CSR work, office work. I know rodent exclusion, so rodent exclusion work when called upon. But yeah, there's no shortage of work at our office. Yeah.
And only because we have a court reporter taking this down, we need a clear record. You said CSR work.
Customer service rep.
Thank you. Can we slow down a bit? Of course.
Okay.
Would you want to continue to work with Fen if you were given your license back?
Of course, I wouldn't think about working for another company. They've been so loyal to me with my legal troubles, and carving out a position for me even after my licenses were taken has just been a blessing. I can't speak. I can go on and on about how loyal and how they've helped me keep my life established as far as employment.
The board had previously given you a chance at licensure in 2012. Why do you deserve a second chance at licensure today?
I'm a complete, I would say, different man. My mind state is different. I take joy into solving problems for any customer that I come across. My goals are just, they're all based off of this industry, and I want to stay on that path and prove that I am competent and a good, member of this society, and just, I can say it all day, but I have to prove it. I'm devoted to living a good life, a godly life, and I'm a better man. I'm a better man. I've changed my whole mind state. I'm not thinking as a kid no more, 28-year-old man. I'm not coerced by money, fast money. I was told by the law judge that sentenced me, I want you to live life and make honest money. And the minute you veer off that path, you're going to be right in front of me again. And I took that to heart, and I know that. I'm smart enough to know myself. I know who not to be around, what circle of friends and family I need to be around to keep me positively motivated and not negatively motivated. There's no time for me to take a step back and dive into any negative or illegal realm. And I just want to move forward in a positive, upstanding job and industry, and prove myself as a worthy license holder and just, member of the community.
Thank you. I have no further questions for Mr. Garcia at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Harris. President, we can either do one of two things, have Ms. Lee ask questions on cross-examination, and then the board can ask their questions, or vice versa. The board can go first.
Ms. Lee can go first.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Lee.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Garcia.
Good morning.
How did you come upon your employment with Fen Termite? How did you get employed?
I had a family member, in-law, that he let me know that they had a position for a construction laborer there. And he was, at the time, I was fresh out of prison, no license. I didn't get my license, I think, till I was 28. And he's like, I can drive you there. They'll allow me to drop you off every morning, and then you can go in the work truck and go with the company. So through an in-law.
So a family member referred you to that company?
Yes.
Is anybody who either runs that company or works for that company, are you related to them? Are you, do you
No.
know them in any other capacity?
No, I don't.
Does Fen know your full criminal history,
Yes, they do.
including the most recent conviction?
Yes, they do.
One of the things that you mentioned in your disciplinary hearing before your license was revoked was that you had mentioned that you had got into the side job of cooking and selling meth because you had wanted to purchase a home. That was sort of your big financial goal at the time. Have you achieved that goal since that conviction?
I was able to speak with people that I should have spoken with in the first place, like peers from my church and whatnot, and they dialed out or showed me the structure of buying of home. So I didn't have no credit cards, nothing at the time. So I know credit's a big thing when it comes to buying a home. So I went from zero credit, or what I thought was I was at zero, to I think I got an 812 now. And I know that's one step towards it. And, you know, I was able to, with me and my wife, we're able to, you know, we're able to save as little as we can and, you know, towards a down payment. So we're on that track as well. I haven't purchased a home yet, but I'm not like clawing for it right now. It's on God's time. It's going to be His blessing in my life. I'm not trying to overstep Him and carve out my own path that is really just going to trip me up. So I haven't achieved that goal yet, but I am in a lot better position now than I was then, even though that 100 or so thousand is not in my possession.
Better position in what way?
I would say credit-wise, you know, having big like purchases on my credit, a car that I'm 40%. I have a Honda that's 40% paid off. I know that goes big towards what lenders look at, and I guess I have stable employment, but I would say basically the credit part of it, and understanding that the money, it has to be, you know, it has to come from a legit place, you know, and it's and I wouldn't, my mind state now, I don't want anything that comes of dirty money. I want it to be clean and clear cut so I can pass it on to my kids, and I could just be right with God and, of course, right with the law.
Okay. Besides working for FEN, do you have any additional sources of income or employment?
I do not.
And does your partner also work?
Yes, she's a surgical assistant, dental surgical assistant.
You mentioned you have 2 kids who are over 18. Do all your kids live with you?
No. My 2 daughters do. My son, he is from another marriage, and he lives with his girlfriend, and my daughter lives in San Diego.
Okay. So out of the 4, you support 2?
I do, yeah.
Currently, okay. What is your ultimate plan within FEN Termite if you decide to, or if you get your licenses reinstated?
I would say acquire my branch 2 and 3, put my head down, work hard, even though it's not asked of me, repay the loyalty that they showed me, and with, you know, God willing, move up, you know, whatever ladder they put in front of me.
Do you foresee upward movement in that company?
I do, but not just in the form of title. You know, with the branch 3 or 2, you know, I can sell work, and I was great at that in the past, and I feel that can be it. Not just leveling up title wise, leveling up, I would say sales wise, and becoming, just helping the company grow. That's my, you know, I don't focus on my own pockets. I think of when I was selling, I was thinking, I still do, think of the company as my own versus going to work just for a paycheck.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit about your convictions. 2017 was your last conviction.
Yes, it was.
Do you have any other convictions since 2017 that the board doesn't know about?
I have none.
And do you have any current or pending arrests or contacts with law enforcement that
I do not.
Sorry, that the board doesn't know about?
I do not.
And 2017, sorry, let me just see. Was it 2017 your conviction? Your
Yes,
last,
May of 2017.
And you were placed on 3 years of probation, so you would have been on probation until 2020?
Yes, September 12th.
And did you have any violations of probation?
I did not.
Have you made any attempts to petition to get that last conviction expunged?
I do have, I have talked to counsel about it. and that would be my next goal.
You have not yet
I
tried?
have not, no.
Sorry, we can't overlap. You have not yet tried?
I have not yet tried. I have been in discussion with my previous attorney about it, though.
Got it. I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Board.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lee. All right, President Finley, now is the opportunity for the board to ask questions. So we'll start with you first, sir.
Thank you so much. How long have you been married?
Since 2014, but I've been in a relationship with my wife since 2002.
Okay, so she's been with you through
Yes.
a lot of this.
Yes, she has.
Awesome. A lot of them I crossed off based off of the questions. As far as what will be the difference, financial benefit and stuff, you kind of answered that as far as with your job, getting the license back.
Yes.
There's room for growth, financially and like what you said, just as far as paying back.
Yes, because I believe, it's the same set of higher ups that I have within the company that's seen what I can do while I had my branch 3 and my applicators. And, it's just these days in this workforce, loyalty goes a long way. You can't buy loyalty. And they have that from me and I have that from them. And, that with those two factors there, it's just, it's a win-win. And the trajectory is just up from there, I feel.
Awesome. Do you have a specific, hey, if you get your license back, we are going to have you be a termite inspector, or is there anything specific that's laid out?
I'm going to, of course, it's the owner's decision, but I want to push to be a universal tech that's even-handed, that can, if I go to an apartment building and they have a roach issue and a termite issue, I would be able to take care of both issues instead of just, I got to send a termite inspector out because I don't have my branch 3. I want to be multi-licensed and be able to be even-handed and take on anything that's thrown at me as far as service and inspection.
Okay, awesome. And then as far as the bad influence, is that still around? Like, are you in the same area that you've been in forever? And how have you separated yourself from the bad influence?
Yeah, I'm in the same area. I did move from the apartment that I was previously living in, which was in Bellflower, in a pretty bad area. I live on a very stable street in Norwalk. And as far as the influence I'm around, I tend to rub elbows and congregate with men that are 15, 20 years older than me, which are elders from church, because I don't have a father to bounce questions off of, and I really don't like asking anybody near or around my age. So with like the men's groups that I attend and just having all my brothers from church on speed dial, that's the circle that I lean on. That's the circle that I gravitate towards, that I congregate with. And anybody, any party or family, I don't drink, I'm straight edge, I don't do any of that. So I dodge a lot of instances and areas of negativity just by being sober alone. Because I'm not the one that everybody invites to a party because they already know I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to sit there and participate in foolishness. And usually at those parties where the fools are, I don't attend, and they know not to invite me because I really don't associate with them. I heavily vet anybody I'm around. But yes, the influence, it's there, it's lurking. But as far as me, I'm good staying at home with my kids, my wife, immediate family, brothers from church. I have enough to do with them versus going out on a limb and trying to go hang out at a party for reasons that are not going to benefit my life.
And if you could say one thing that the biggest life change since 2017, what would it be?
So it was, I drew a blank there back on that last question from Scott, and I was just reflecting, like it was just flashing. So sorry if I looked like a deer with, in the headlights, but it was. I'm gonna step back a little bit. Doing time when I was younger, I had a daughter, but I didn't have my family structure. Good night kisses, good morning, I love you kisses, goodbye from work, like. Having my daughter sleep with me, just having that attachment of your kids, like, I think they call them detachment issues or whatnot. I didn't have all that doing time, so I can go do time years, months, and I didn't really have a worry or a ache in my heart. I didn't really miss anybody. That week I did in 2017 before I bailed out, that crush, it reshaped me as a man and brought me back down to where I should be at in life and what my duties were in life, to be a loving father that is a role model and whatnot. And it shook me to the core because I wasn't that same guy. Even though, I was doing making the side money and all that. When I did that week in jail, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Like, I had a lot of time to think, reflect, talk to God, and just really evaluate myself and basically kick myself in the butt and say, why are you making these dumb decisions? It goes against everything in you to make these dumb decisions, end up here, and now your heart is aching because you're away from your family, and just think about how they're hurting. So that's with all that I came out of there just reformed already. In my mind, I was like, I'm never touching anything. I'm dabbling in anything illegal. And then on top of that, just being blessed to be able to bail out, getting blessed by the courts with the 8-year joint suspension. I didn't have to serve no time after that. So I was just like, if I was thankful just to get out in the first place, but to not have to do no time after that, it just was I would say, solidifying the reform that was taking place in my mind and my heart and my spirit, I would say.
Well, I just want to commend you. It's amazing. My dad was in and out of prison with running meth labs and stuff, and so to hear your story, I hope that you stay on this path.
No, I appreciate that. That really means a lot to me, and I really appreciate your guys' time, and it's so important to me to get back on track and be a part of this industry that I've come to love, and it's just, thank you. I wasn't expecting that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, down the line, Vice President Anderson.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Garcia.
You're welcome.
I just have a few questions. As it relates to the firearms from the conviction of 2017, what was the role that they served for you? Were they utilized in any capacity, or were they simply there for your sale? And could you speak to that a little bit more clearly?
Okay. Thank you for the question. So I acquired one handgun for safety because, of course, I had something that people that are not in a good mind state would want, and I had money, and I had family to take care of, which, I hate myself for putting them in the realm of those things. But it started off with one, and that's all I needed. But it became hard for me to make sales, so people were offering me additional firearms, and I'm like, all right, well, I might as well take that since they don't have money. I just want to get this stuff out of my house and acquire something that had monetary value, and I wasn't thinking of like, making a fort out of my apartment, but it was just one that I leaned on for safety. The others just came with the whole sales aspect of it.
Do you currently have any firearms?
I do not. I'm not allowed to possess one for my life.
And as it relates to, do you have, whether it's a result of the time spent because of your criminal convictions and not being able to be employed, do you have any large debts occurred?
I did have one. I had a child support arrears that was part of that led me down that wrong path of thinking because it felt uphill. I recently paid that off in the beginning of this year. It was at one point, I think it was at $16,000. It dwindled down to about $5,000, and I just paid it off. Okay. So I have I got a car note for $499 a month rent, of course, bills and expensive groceries like we're all dealing with. But no, I mean, as far as I paid, restitution was paid for the criminal offenses. I'm paid up on child support. I have nothing tapping into my pay.
Okay. So would you say your current employment covers your current lifestyle and debts as well?
It does. It does cover it. Along, me and my wife have, joint income, so I'm able to live comfortably, I would say. Of course, saving up for my daughter's quinceañeras or sweet 16s or whatnot, that's in the near distance, and my older daughter being in college and whatnot. Thank God for financial aid. But with where I'm currently at, I'm able to live comfortably only because my expectations for life are, this is temporary to me. Being here is temporary. I mean, I have a home, somewhere else. So I'm not looking at all the flashy material stuff or whatnot. Everything I get on sale or find a sale for something. If I really want it, I'll track it until it's on sale and then get it. And that's even with my daughter's stuff, with my wife's stuff. I'm always trying to budget. So by being able to budget at a large capacity, I'm able to not scrape by, but be comfortable with, with my means.
Okay. And did you say you were 43?
42.
42,
Yeah.
okay. So I think through our discussions, we noted that really for the greater part of half of your life, you have had some sort of criminal conviction or criminal activity. Can you speak to what has been the largest motivator or kind of pattern breaker? Because I think, you can assume that someone that, has lived that way for half their life, how does that change suddenly? How do we break those patterns? So what would you say has been the biggest contributor to you continuing down the line of breaking those patterns?
So when I did get my conviction in 2017, of course, the jail time I mentioned and the blessings that came my way after the conviction, my mind state was solid before I got sentenced, and it just re-solidified as I got sentenced. But I would say the support I got from my peers that I should have been reaching out to, my church family, my employer, them backing me and being in my corner and knowing the good in me and dismissing the bad and helping me get on track, that was the biggest, I would say, game changer there. I went to a party when I got bailed out, family gathering, and one of my close cousins and his wife, they were sitting, like me and Scott are sitting here, and it was the elephant in the room, right? And they're just like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing?" And they're probably 6 years older than me, and they're established, their lives, they're well off, and they're like, "Don't you know my kids look up to you too?" Like, excuse me.
It's okay, take your time.
I was already down on myself about my kids, But to think that opened my eyes, like, no, you have multiple eyes on you. Multiple family members, upcoming teenagers, look to me as their uncle. I might not be their uncle by blood, I might be a cousin, but a lot of my family members are doing bad. And they looked to me as someone that was doing good, even though I was doing this evil on the side. And I was humbled by that. I was really
Thank you, I appreciate you sharing.
because just because I was focused. Even then, I was like, I thought I was dialed in, and I was focused, and I was like, all right, well, now I'm gonna live godly. I'm gonna do that. But I totally missed the fact that I was messing up my opportunity to be a role model for others that were looking at me that I didn't notice.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Member Paxson?
Good morning. I hope you understand. We just have to ask some questions just to make sure we fully understand
Yeah.
what's going on. And
No worries.
so most of my questions have been asked already. So, but one thing I just want to walk through is your last conviction was because of things you were doing in 2017?
Correct.
Okay. And I think you alluded to the fact that it sounds like your family was living with you in that apartment at the time?
Yes, they were.
And you had married your wife a few years before that. So were they aware of what you were doing?
I kept it under wraps. I was secretive about it. I had things, put in places where it wasn't within eye shot or reach. My wife would get suspicious, and I'd be dishonest about a drive I took or where I was. I'm at the gym or whatnot. But I was keeping it under wraps. They were not. It wasn't wide open, and they did not aid or assist in any of the ongoings.
And from the materials, it looks like you joined your current church in 11 years ago. So what, around 2011 or 2012?
Yeah, I actually, when I got the construction job at Finn, I met a brother by the name of John Santos, and he was godly man. And every negative thing I had to say about, my life at the time, he would point out the blessing in it. And I really wish I would have just stood in solid contact with him instead of dabbling outside of my church realm, because he invited me to church. And I joined church because of John Santos. And that's when I joined. We didn't even have a pastor at the time. Jerome Carter wasn't there yet. But even though I was dabbling in, the bad, me and my wife made an agreement to join a church. So as soon as I got the invitation from John Santos, we went and we almost immediately joined because, even though it's hard to say that I was looking towards doing good and still doing evil, but that was the case. I still wanted to have my kids brought up in the church. So being, we eventually got a pastor, and I dove right in because, there's churchgoers and then there's those that know they're called for ministry. And it's really in me to speak to juveniles, but we don't really have that kind of ministry. I've been to Central Juvenile Hall and spoke to them in the past and whatnot. But whatever ministry they had, I just rose my hand for it. The first thing that came up was convalescent ministry. So dove into that, went to youth camps, and just really, my churches, there's a lot of older members. So I never had a grandma, right? But I have 30 of them there, so it's just, felt really good, and for the most part.
If you have 30 grandmas, you won't ever do anything wrong again,
Right?
right?
Yes. And they know, and they were aware, and I was, we had a New Year's gathering, and I it was on my heart to tell everybody the wrong that I've gotten into. And because I knew they would forgive me, but at the same time, I felt guilty because here I am with this mask on when I'm over here doing this. I'm trying to do both. And I, divulged that in a New Year's meeting. We had a dinner we had.
One of the things that we have to struggle with when someone comes to us with your request and your history is, are you going to do it again? Yes. And I will just tell you my concern, and it's a very small concern, is that a lot of the support that you have in place now was there in 2017 as well. And you've explained to us why you think you're different now and what it was that means you're different, and you're doing better now than you were then. And all I'm going to say is, regardless of our decision, keep doing it. Okay? Keep living the life you're living now, and good things will happen.
Thank you, and thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
All right, Member Tengen, any questions?
I do. First of all, I'd like to thank you for sharing your journey with us. It takes
You're
great
welcome.
courage to take ownership of one's path. When you first started with Fenn, you stated you're in construction.
Yes.
How has your duties changed with a license and without a license?
So I went from doing wood repair, you mean back then and when I first got the job or currently? Oh, when I first, okay, so I was hired on as a construction laborer. I didn't have a license. So as soon as, I would say after we got done with the big project, they had to lay me off because they couldn't keep carpooling me to the jobs. So they laid me off for, I would say, a week, and then I got a call back from the owners saying, I guess they liked how I was punctual and I showed up every day, and they heard that I got my driver's license, I think the week after I got laid off. He's the owner, which is now this is the dad of the owner now, asked me if I wanted to return as a branch 3 field rep. He didn't even, usually it's treater and then you go to inspector. He wanted to jump me to inspector and cancel out the treatment part of it. So when I came back, I think it was a Christmas party. They said, you know what, just come to the Christmas party. Even though you're laid off, you'll start that next Monday after the Christmas party. So I went, started training, and I was doing treatments and just ride-alongs for inspections when I came back. And then as soon as I got my branch 3, I hit the ground running doing inspections, WDO inspections.
Gotcha. And could you expand on what you do now for them?
Yeah, so customer service rep, duties, answering phone calls, customer service questions, rodent exclusion, basically cleaning up the warehouse, anything that keeps the company afloat that is, of course, doesn't require a license.
Okay. Yeah, because you stated earlier solving problems for your customers that you come across. Could you expand on that statement?
Okay, so solving problems. I would say by the exclusion work, I feel that I'm solving the issues that were already called out by the inspector that sold the job. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
That's all
welcome.
my questions.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Member Tengen. I'm going to circle back to Mr. Harris. Anything on redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for your questions, members of the board. Board Member Paxson articulated that you had a lot of the same support in 2017 when you were convicted that you have today. The intimation is that you had the support and yet you still were convicted and engaged in these activities. What can you tell Mr. Paxson about the difference between then and now related to this support and how you engage it?
So at the time, when I was doing those bad things and had the support, I was totally disrespecting the relationships I had with the men and women that were supporting me. And I'm really big on respect, but the whole money aspect of it had me doing things sideways and putting respect aside and consideration aside, and it just gave me this false sense that, oh, I can just do this for a minute and get my house and put on this front and stay tied into my friends that I had the good support that I appreciated, but I didn't respect them because of the other avenues of life I was traveling down. So the change in that, just to circle back on doing this and feeling in my mind, in my heart, if I was there supporting someone like myself and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, they come to me and say, oh, I just got out, I got bailed out, I was doing A, B, and C. Me, myself, I might have wrote me off, just the kind of person I am. You know what, you're kicked out of the church, you know what, you're this, you're that, but they stood firm with me, and just them reflecting God's love towards me was like him speaking to me and saying, look at everything I'm doing for you. These people that I placed in your life early on, they're not going nowhere. They're stable because I have a path for you. Like, the strong relationship you get with God, the more you hear him. But you don't hear him in words, you hear him in, he speaks through people as filters. And seeing them stick by my side and never even question me about it. Just, you made a mistake. God forgives you. We forgive you. We're here to support you and help you advance in your relationship with Him and show His love through us towards you so you can really get the big picture. So that's how I think of things differently right now, and all of the support I have, I'm really utilizing them as support and not just, oh, they make me feel good because I have them in my circle of friends. Like it's about me making them feel good, and I make them feel good by progressing in life and living a straight and narrow life and going down the straight and narrow path and staying godly. So it's like I feel I owe to a lot of that, everybody that supports me, everybody in those letters, like I'm paying that back, even though they might not want it or ask for it or question me or want to know where I'm at now. It's a goal. It's one of my goals as well, as to reflect that love back towards them.
I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Lee, anything else?
Oh, Your Honor, thank you. No.
All right, board members, anything else? Okay, very good. Mr. Harris, would you like to make a closing statement?
Sure, I'll be brief. As I stated at the beginning, we appreciate your time here today, and we understand your role in public protection. We understand that when you issue a license, you are giving a stamp of approval for someone to enter a home or engage the public. And we understand the burden that Mr. Garcia has to regain your trust. And at the beginning of my presentation today, I asked you to look back at your prior decision in 2019, because you invited, as I stated, Mr. Garcia to stay on a path. You found him credible then, and I'm hoping that you will find him credible here today. You found that he was extraordinarily remorseful and insightful, these were your words, into the conduct that he had engaged in that led to his revocation. And what you've seen here today is an ongoing insightfulness, respect, and remorse. And those are tantamount to the equation of rehabilitation. In your disciplinary guidelines, you speak to the nature and severity of the acts. And we have no qualms with your decision that led to the revocation. They were severe. And you had given him a chance, and you then invited him to rehabilitate himself. It has now been many years since the underlying incidents. It has been 4 years since the loss of his license, and he has had now 3 years without any type of supervision. And when you look at his life, he's done what you invited him to do. He has stayed employed in the industry while respecting the barriers of licensure. He has support of his employer, someone who has stood by his side since the very beginning. He has remained active in church, and you will find letters of reference from his fellow patrons with his church, his senior pastor, and others. He has remained involved in the community, coaching softball and doing work with the convalescent hospitals. And he has come before you humbled. And he's ready, willing, and able to partake in this industry and to be given the chance to continue to prove himself. And we believe that the evidence clear and convincingly demonstrates that he has met his burden of rehabilitation. And we hope that the board will entertain issuing Mr. Garcia his license, even subject to ongoing probation, where he can continue to prove his worthiness so that he can move in the future in 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it may be, onto his next goals of home ownership and further involvement in your community with other licensure. So we again thank you very humbly for your time today and respect the decision that you may come to. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Harris. Ms. Lee, anything else you'd like to say in closing on behalf of the people?
Your Honor, we would submit on the evidence, but we would remind the court and the board that the criteria for rehabilitation for this board can be found in Title 16, California Code of Regulations, Section 1937.2. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lee. That concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The record is closed, and we are off the record. Thank you all.
Thank you. Before we move on to agenda item 5, if we could take a 3-minute recess real quick, appreciate it, and then we will go to agenda item 5.
Yeah, one more petition.
Okay, we are back. We are on agenda item number 5, is a petition for reinstatement. The purpose of this hearing today is for the board to consider a petition for reinstatement from Daniel Ray Smith. I will now turn the meeting over to the administrative law judge to begin the hearing.
Thank you, President Finley. We are here, well, first of all, we're on the record. We are here before the Structural Pest Control Board to review the petition for reinstatement of Daniel Ray Smith. This is agency case number 2010-084 and OAH number 2023-090-542. My name is Danette Brown, and I am an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, assigned to hear this petition matter. A quorum of the board is present, and may I take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General, please?
Good morning, Deputy Attorney General. On behalf of the Attorney General's Office, appearing pursuant to Government Code 11522.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. And just a reminder to the parties, our Madam Court Reporter is taking everything down that you say, so if you can kindly speak slowly and clearly and directly into the microphone, it is much appreciated by our Madam Court Reporter. Before we commence with the petition hearing, Mr. Smith, are you choosing to represent yourself here this morning?
Yes.
Okay. Let me give you a few sort of, guidance principles and instructions about the hearing in this matter. And, even before I do that, if you have any questions at all, just raise it, and I'll see if I can sort of guide you through this process.
Okay.
So basically, this is a petition for reinstatement hearing. The Deputy Attorney General, Ms. Lee, who's seated to your right, will provide a brief orientation of this matter. And after that, she will be providing the documents that are in that file folder that you have. After that, you have a right to make a presentation of your own, and I'll put you under oath, and you can sort of explain why you believe your license should be reinstated.
Okay.
You can also call witnesses on your behalf if you so wish. They will be subject, and you will be subject to any questioning by both the board members as well as Madam Deputy Attorney General. So you don't necessarily have to repeat anything in that petition packet necessarily, unless of course you want to emphasize something or point something out. But the board is particularly concerned with rehabilitation. That's what it's all about.
Okay.
You're reminded that the board has the benefit of having read the petition packet. And after the hearing, the board will go into closed hearing to deliberate. So you're not going to receive a decision today, but you will receive it at some point, sometime in the mail or via email in the future.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Smith, any questions so far?
Nothing.
Okay, very good. So at this time, I'm going to put you under oath, so if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And if you could please state and spell your name for the record.
Daniel Ray Smith, DanielRaysmith.
Okay, you may have to repeat that. Is your microphone on? I think there's
Yes, sir.
a button right at the base of the microphone, and it should be green.
It is green.
Okay, maybe I'm not hearing. Okay, okay.
Turn it up, or we can try talking a little louder.
Okay. Daniel Ray Smith, DanielSmith.
Great.
I'm
Thank you,
sorry, I
Mr.
forgot
Smith.
that R.
Appreciate that.
Ray, I'm sorry.
All right, so turning it over to Ms. Lee for a brief orientation of the case and presentation of the documents. Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Your Honor, and members of the board. The matter before The board, with respect to Mr. Smith, is a petition for reinstatement of his field representative's license 35981. A brief procedural history. Mr. Smith was issued his applicator's license back in 2001 under Branch 2. That was canceled pursuant to him being issued the field representative's license at issue in May of 2003, also in Branch 2. After receiving his field representative's license in 2003, he suffered an accusation filed by the board in 2010, which is this case number 2010-84. The basis of that accusation was that he had sustained a number of substantially related convictions between 1994 and 2010 in Sacramento County and San Joaquin County, excuse me. Those convictions ranged from evading the police, possession of marijuana as a misdemeanor, battery as a misdemeanor, possession of methamphetamine as a felony, battery on a partner or spouse as a misdemeanor, manufacturing methamphetamine as a felony, possession of methamphetamine as a felony, and the possession of receipt of the receipt of stolen property as a misdemeanor. The second basis of that accusation was that at the time of his license application for the field rep license, there was a misrepresentation on the application on the question, have you ever been convicted of a felony or misdemeanor other than a violation of traffic laws? Mr. Smith had checked no and did not disclose 6 out of those 8 convictions. There was, upon a disciplinary hearing, there was a decision to revoke Mr. Smith's license, which was effective May 29, 2011. There was no cost recovery associated with that decision or order. And Your Honor, we can go over the exhibit book when the court is ready.
Go ahead.
At this time, we've collected as Exhibit 1, starting with the jurisdictional documents, which includes the board's letter confirming today's hearing, Mr. Smith's confirmation of the hearing. Next, the petition and related documents, which includes the board's letter to the petitioner regarding the guidelines for these petitions, Mr. Smith's petition itself, which includes his declaration and his live scan service completion. It also, we would also note that there's a supplemental packet for the board and the court, which includes rehabilitation documentation submitted by Mr. Smith, which came in after the petition. So there's specifically a letter from San Joaquin County regarding his substance abuse residential program recovery that he had completed in 2016. There's also his completion of the domestic violence program in San Joaquin County. That was the program report from that. I believe Mr. Smith also has an additional character reference letter that he would like to submit to the board, which we can go over later. In addition, in Exhibit 1, there is the board's decision and order from that disciplinary case, case number 2010-84. It also includes the accusation. We also have the certified license history of his applicators and field representatives' licenses. And then we also have a number of court records regarding convictions that he had suffered after his board license was revoked. I don't know if the board has the index in front of a copy of our index, but those court records include case number SF117822A, which was a 2011 felony conviction for possession of a controlled substance, specifically methamphetamine. He was placed on 5 years probation. That was expunged in June of 2022. Next is case number SM278794A. That was a 2012 misdemeanor conviction for petty theft. He was placed on 3 years probation. That conviction was expunged in June of 2022. Next is case number SF119018A. That was a 2012 felony conviction, 5 years probation for possession of methamphetamine, which was expunged in June of 2022. Case number SF121533A was another 2012 felony conviction. He served a 16-month state prison sentence, essentially in county jail, and he was placed on 20 months of mandatory supervision, which would have been served out through his county probation department. That was for a felony conviction of receipt of stolen property. Case number SF125579A was a 2013 felony conviction, 5 years probation. He was a prohibited person in possession of ammunition. Case number SM287840A was a 2014 felony conviction. He served a straight time sentence of 3 years of county jail. This was for petty theft with prior theft convictions. This was the convictions that we've mentioned thus far have all been expunged in June of 2022. Next was a case number CR-2015-0011557. This was a 2015 misdemeanor conviction. He was placed on 3 years of probation for petty theft. That was expunged in June of 2022. Case number CR-2015-0011661 was another conviction in 2015, misdemeanor, battery on spouse, 3 years probation. It was expunged in June of 2022. Case number CR-2015-0013933. This is another 2015 felony conviction, 5 years of probation. This was a grand theft from a person, which was a charge that was reduced from an initial complaint that had it was charged as a robbery, and it was pled down to a grand theft from person. This was expunged in June of 2022. Next case was CR-2016-0010310. This was a 2016 misdemeanor conviction for 3 years of probation, possession of methamphetamine. And then finally, case number 62154-904. This was his last conviction, 2017 misdemeanor, 3 years of probation, again for possession of methamphetamine. And we would note for the board and the court that we have the certified records of all of these convictions with the exception of case number SF121533A. No, sorry, excuse me. With the exception of case number SF119018A and case number 62154-904, which we'll go over with Mr. Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. So all of those documents, including the supplemental documents that were submitted later, they'll be collectively marked as Exhibit 1 and admitted. Okay, so now at this time, I've already put you under oath, Mr. Smith. So is there anything you would like to state to the board members at this time?
Well, I'm definitely saddened that I've done all these things, and I truly had, what kind of started this whole thing was back in '95, I had found out that I had cancer, and they were going to amputate my leg at Stanford. Then I thought I'd shoot for another hospital, and I ended up in Houston, Texas at another hospital, and they gave me their diagnosis and their procedures that they wanted to do. And I thought, well, gosh, if I'm going to go through all that, I'd like to be closer to home. So I went to UC Davis and got the third way that they wanted to treat this cancer. Anyway, long story short is I ended up at Houston, Texas, and it was kind of weird is I had to sign papers back then stating that I would probably end up becoming a addicted person on drugs at some point during all these procedures. I was one of 12 people in the United States to ever get that kind of a treatment. I was off the scales as far as chemotherapy goes. I was basically a guinea pig. What happened was they gave me so much chemotherapy that it enlarged my heart. And so they kind of explained that to me as if when you blow a balloon up and you let it back down, and this will become reason why I'm telling you this to come up later, is it's like blowing a balloon up, you let the air back out of it, that heart never becomes the same. It's going to be a different shape and different form. And it did, it happened. And what happened was blood clots actually it became in my heart, and we never did anything about those. And many years later, these blood clots let loose, and this is going to explain to you why I kind of get off track and stuff. I've had 3 strokes in the last 3 years. I ended up at UC Davis, or no, not UC Davis, at MD Anderson, not MD Anderson, UCSF Hospital. Okay, she's telling me to go slower and louder. I'm sorry. If you guys want to stop me, please do. So I get confused now because of the strokes. Anyway, so I ended up at that hospital for like 6 weeks. Then from there, I went to rehab for another 6 weeks. And then I did another rehab in Stockton for another probably 3 months. Did I say 6 weeks? I meant to say, yeah, it was 6 weeks. When I was still in a wheelchair when I even finished up the program in Stockton. It took me another 8 months to graduate out of the wheelchair. And, I'm here now. But anyway, that's kind of where the addiction started. Those things happened. I got finished with that during some part of my life, and I'm done with that kind of a lifestyle, drugs and things like that. I have an opportunity to go to work with this other company and be a part of it and be a different kind of a person, so. Okay. So if I get confused and lost, please just bring me back on track. It's been difficult. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Lee, any questions for Mr. Smith?
Yes, Your Honor. So let's start with a little bit about your background. Do you have any children?
I do.
How many children do you have?
I have one daughter, and she definitely missed out of me during my part of being a drug addict. We have rekindled that. I see her on a everyday basis. We communicate, and it's a wonderful, great relationship. And it's the same thing with my mom and dad, my sister.
How old is your daughter?
My daughter's 35.
Do you live with your daughter or your mother or your father or anybody in your family?
No.
Do you live alone?
I live alone, yes.
Okay.
I got rid of that other problem. I got a divorce. So that was part of my problem, too.
I'd like to ask you a little bit about your employment history. So let's see, let's start with your current history. You said that you work for
Area-wide pest control.
Area-wide pest control. How long have you worked with them?
I only work about 10 hours a week, but it's a family-owned business. I've been there since I can remember at the dinner table, discussing pest control and things like that. So it's in my blood. It's something I have passion about. And so it's there. The opportunity is to go back into the company. My daughter also works for the company now. She'll be running the company. I'll be just a functioning part, hopefully, if this thing goes through, to help make her life easier.
Okay, let's take a step back. So in your petition, you mentioned that area-wide exterminators, you've been working for them since 2021. Does that sound right?
Yes, it's after I kind of learned how to walk again and things like that. So I just do, tire repairs, paint trucks, yard work. I was just happy to be able to walk and do anything. So at that point, I couldn't do anything more than what I was doing, and that's the bare minimum.
Okay, so from October of 2021 to March of 2022, so about 5 or 6 months, you were doing yard and truck maintenance?
Anything that I could do to help make life easier for any of the technicians to be
Okay.
able to get their tires fixed, get to a smog place, get a smog, done, set up or something like that.
And then it looks like you worked for them again since January of this year to present,
Okay,
doing similar things.
same type of things, yes.
And then between that gap of March 2022 and January of 2023, so a little bit less than a year, what kind of employment did you have, if any?
Was that during the time when I was at the pest control company?
So it looks like if you look at your petition,
Okay. You got to remember, my daughter helped me out with this, and
it looks like
time frames and math and things like that are way out there now.
if you look at the date range, so my question to you is, what, if any, work were you doing between this gap, between March 2022 and January of 2023? If you remember.
That's I don't remember.
Okay. Do you recall having any other employment in between working for Area 1?
Any other?
Area
employment?
wide?
Oh, I was doing, yeah, I would go out and I would do painting of a house, I would do working on cars, I would be doing numerous amounts of other types of work just to be able to bring in income for myself, for sure.
For other companies?
For other, homes, people across the street, whatever I could come up with, there was always hauling things.
Mr. Smith, could you kindly get that microphone a little bit closer to you?
All
Because
right.
you're trailing off a little bit.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Let me get over here a little bit.
So I now want to ask you a little about the chunk between your last conviction, 2017, and then before you started working for Area Wide in 2021. So that's about a 4-year chunk. What kind of work were you doing at that time, if any? So 2017 to 2021.
2017, I was doing everything from yards to whatever I could find, auto mechanic stuff. 2019, June 2019, first stroke. June, second stroke. June, third stroke. And like I said, the third stroke, I had already spent a month in San Joaquin County Hospital. They shipped me off to UCSF in an ambulance, and I spent another 6 weeks at that hospital. Then from there, went to Los Gatos for another 6 weeks stay in a rehabilitation center. Left there still in a wheelchair. Literally couldn't even sit up, because otherwise I'd throw up, and I was seeing double, and it was just a terrible mess. Came back to Stockton, intensive rehab every single day, Monday through Friday. So it was a lot in the hospital situations. So not a whole lot of work being done there, living with mom and dad so they could transport me back and forth. So it's kind of like that.
So that was 2019?
Yes.
Okay. And you say you went back to Stockton. So where were you originally coming from?
The hospital.
But in what county?
Oh, that was in,
Or what city?
that was from UCSF, which is San Francisco, to Los Gatos, which was for rehab.
And then is Stockton where your parents
That's where my
reside?
parents reside, yes.
Now, anything in 2020 or 2021 in terms of employment, or were you still going through rehabilitation at that point?
Most of it's been a long, hard road, long struggle, so most of it's been rehabilitation and therapy and, all these type of things to get my mind together and my physical body together. I mean, I got some pictures I can show you where they can't sit up, stand up, or anything else.
And just so I understand the history of your strokes, you had 3 strokes in the same month of June of 2019?
Yes, and then I've had a pacemaker put in and a defibrillator put in. I've got sleep apnea now. All this stuff's happened in 2019. Diabetes, it's like the list goes on and on and on.
Okay. One of the things you just mentioned was that you had
Heart attack too. I'm sorry.
You had learned that you were diagnosed with cancer in 1995.
Correct.
You said that
I started treatments in 95 and I finished treatments in 97.
Okay. You intimated that perhaps you had a substance abuse addiction with meth. Is that right?
After that.
After that,
After
and you had intimated that perhaps those things were related.
Yeah, I actually had to sign papers stating that they already knew that I was probably going to end up being an addicted person because of the pain and the being able to deal and cope with it. I can't really tell you exactly, but there was papers that I signed. She could testify it too, because it was kind of a weird thing to have to do.
Besides methamphetamine, did you?
I also was on pain medication too. It was both.
Okay, what kind of pain medication?
Vicodin.
This was starting in 1995?
The addiction probably didn't start till after I'd left the procedures, probably, so 95, 98, probably. And I'm just guessing at those things.
Okay. And then besides Vicodin, anything else that you felt you
Any kind of pain medication, pretty much. It was what was available, that's what I was able to take. And those were also doctor prescribed too, so
They were or were not?
were.
Okay. Did you find yourself,
But I would add to it, to be honest, I mean, if I got Tony come over here and said, hey, I got 50 more Vicodin, I'm saying, okay, well, give them to me,
so that's my question. Besides what was prescribed for you, were you ingesting painkillers outside of your prescription?
Yes, because they become not so potent, so it's like you take more, and more. Unfortunately, you don't know these things when you're starting, but you end up learning.
Okay. So your first conviction actually predates all of this, 1994. So besides the substance abuse addiction, were you having any other issues that made you get into these criminal incidents? So besides your cancer diagnosis, was there anything else going on in your life that led you to your first conviction in 1994?
I think maybe some depression, having some issues with depression, maybe.
Okay.
And then it was just a trial thing. Okay, I got involved with somebody that, was doing that. I thought, okay, well, I could try that, and completely hated it. It was like, but anyway, I got in trouble for it too, though.
Trial meaning the treatment that you were receiving?
No, the drug that I was trying.
Oh, trying, okay.
Trying, yeah.
Got it, okay. So during the time that you were sort of in and out of jail because of your conviction, so now we're going the chunk before 2017. So were you did you have any steady employment in any period of time between 1995 and 2017?
I can't remember.
What kind of work did you do?
I've done commercial refrigeration. I've done a lot of that. I've done the pest control, and then the yard work, and then the other types of works like that. But my two main things I did is I did a lot of commercial refrigeration in all the major grocery stores and the pest control. And then I've dabbled in real estate also.
Real estate. Let's talk about that. I think one thing you mentioned in your previous hearing when your license was at issue, you had mentioned that you rent some rental properties.
Right.
How did you come upon those rental properties?
I ended up purchasing them and then, running them, managing them and stuff.
Did you, where did you get the income to purchase the rental properties?
Family help. Definitely mom and dad help, for sure.
And when did you purchase? Was there a period of time that you purchased those properties?
I bought my very first home when I was 18. Unfortunately, I moved out of my house when I was 17, and I was out there for about 2.5 weeks, and I thought, oh my God, this is not like what you think it is. Please, Mom, take me back home. And they did. And at that point, I had decided that the next time I move out of my home, I'm going to be ready. And I saved. I had a gas station job, and I saved and saved and saved and saved. It wasn't a large amount of money down, but it was like $5,000 or $6,000. It was a big amount for me, but that was all it was. And I bought my first home at 18. And then eventually I bought another home and sold it, bought another home and sold it, and just kind of upgraded and upgraded and upgraded with these homes. to this point now.
Okay. And how many of those rental properties do you still have today?
Three.
Three. And are they still rental properties, or do you live in any of them?
Well, I live in one, and I have two other ones.
You rent out 2 others?
Correct, yeah. And then unfortunately, one burnt down. It was in the middle of selling it. Some transients moved in it. I had to stop the frickin' the fire insurance. Anyway, so it fell out of escrow. I thought, well, I got it back in escrow. I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be selling it. And some transients got in that thing, and they caught it on fire, burned it up, and I lost everything. It was like,
So do you only have one rental property that you're renting out at this point?
no, I still have two.
So the one that you lived in burned down?
No, it was a fourth one that I had.
Oh, I understand. Okay, got it. And then,
And then believe this, one of my other ones caught on fire too. It's like, oh my God.
so with respect to your rental properties and the income that comes from that versus the income that comes from area-wide exterminators, can you give us maybe a split of how much of the income for you comes from either or?
The income from the pest control company you talk about now,
Yes.
I get $162 every week from the pest control.
Okay.
I probably get close to $4,000 from the rental properties.
Okay. So the rental properties make up the majority of your income.
Correct, yes.
Okay. We'll go back to your employment history. Anything else that we haven't covered in terms of your employment that you would like the board to know about?
I think we got most of it. Thank you.
Are you licensed in any other occupation?
No, I don't have any other requirements with any other occupation.
Okay. In terms of any continuing education that you've done since you had your license revoked in 2011, have you been keeping up with anything in terms of updates in the law, updates in the regulations?
To be real honest, I didn't ever think there was going to be an opportunity to get back in the field, so I really didn't look into it a whole lot. But in the past 3 years or so, I have been doing online studying and things of that sort there with the possibility of hoping to be able to come back into the industry, so yes.
So online study would be like a formal course, or are you sort of just researching on your own?
My daughter, I'm not the technical guy, right? So my daughter will get me into these programs, these things, and she'll say, study here, study here, study here. And so that type of things. And then we got the books and things at the office that I
Okay. Have you completed any of the formal courses that are offered?
completed. No.
Have you taken any of them but not completed them?
I mean, starting them, and then, yeah, I just didn't, at that point, I didn't see no reason to have to go that far because I didn't know I was going to be getting back into it.
Okay. Now, let's talk, thank you for reminding me about your daughter's relationship to area-wide exterminators. What is that? How is she related to that company?
She's right now trying to get her operators, and my sister is also getting her operators. Mom and Dad are getting at the point to where they want to, adios, so the entire family is still involved in this, with this company.
So area-wide exterminators is owned by?
Carol Smith, which is my mother, and Al Smith, which is my father.
And your daughter is working on?
She's been there for 15 years probably, and she's now applying for her operators. And then my sister is also right now applying for her operators.
And which of the two plans to take over the company?
Hopefully both. I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Okay.
That really hasn't been decided by Mom and Dad yet.
What do you expect, what do you anticipate, if your license is reinstated, what do you anticipate your role to be in that company?
My role would be to help assist in any way, shape, or form with customer service, most likely, mechanical abilities in the office and out there in the field, education with the technicians, anything that could help ease up things so that they could do the things they got to do.
Would you be doing any of the field work yourself, do you anticipate?
I would hope so, that I could help out in that manner when there's a customer that needs extra additional attention, I would hope that I could go out and maybe resolve the situations. You know, not all technicians are capable of doing all that, but
And do you have a specific title or position waiting for you if you return with a license?
boss. Just kidding. I don't know if I have I don't know.
You don't know if you do.
If I have a position, I'm sorry, I might have missed the question.
Yeah, my question is, do you have a specific title or role waiting for you if you get your license reinstated?
I'm sure they have way more than I want to do, but yeah, I'm sure they have something for me.
And do you know what that position is? You've
A field
mentioned what,
representative, maybe, a field rep,
and how long has this company been in operation?
since 79.
Always within the ownership of your family?
They've owned it since 79. I've been listening to this pest control stuff since I was way younger than that, because my dad worked for Clark Pest Control and left Clark Pest Control and went into opening his own pest control. So
Okay, so now we're going
our
to go.
dinner topic was how to get rid of these bugs. It's like, so,
So now we're going to go into a little bit about your criminal history.
okay.
You heard the summary of how I had summarized your convictions. Was there anything about that summary that you disagreed with?
I thought that they were all expunged, so the rest of whatever isn't expunged is going to be expunged as soon as I get out of this room. It's going to start.
Okay, so let's go over that first then. So your last two convictions, the one from 2016, case number ending in 10310, and then your very last conviction, 2017,
Excuse me.
which is the case number 621544904. Those two did not have expungement petitions granted.
And from me talking to the other attorney, we were thinking, or she thought they were all done, and so did I. And so this is something that I just realized that I didn't have expunged, otherwise they would have also been expunged.
Okay, do you plan to get those expunged in
Oh, most definitely, yeah.
in the near future?
In my near future?
Yes.
Oh, like immediately, yes.
Do you have any specific plans with your attorney to do that? Like,
Just to tell them to get it going, get it done. I'm sure there'd be no problem to get it expunged. I'm sure it's 100% just oversight.
okay. So then I want to ask you specifically about that last conviction from 2017, the possession for methamphetamine. We don't have the court records, but that was a conviction that you suffered. Is that correct?
I would think so, yeah.
Well, you were there.
I was there, yeah, I would say
Okay.
yes.
And then there was a conviction, the other one that we don't have the court records for. This was SF119018A. This was a 2012 felony conviction, again for possession of methamphetamine, 5 years of probation. Do you recall suffering a 2012 conviction for possession of meth?
Do I recall it? Probably not, but did I do it? I'm 100% sure I did.
Okay. Do you have any, I have to ask you this question, do you have any criminal convictions that we have not gone over that the board does not
I
aware?
have been squeaky clean for a long time, so I am so happy. I could not do a sentence or do a crime.
That the board-
Health-wise, or mental-wise, or time-wise, I'm done with it. It's over. I'm so happy to say that, too.
Sorry, I have to finish my question so we
I'm
can't
sorry.
overlap. So the board is not unaware, the board is aware of everything.
Okay.
Is that right?
I'm assuming they are, yes.
Okay. And then do you have any current criminal charges or arrests that are pending that the board may not know about?
I got a speeding ticket years ago, and that's the only thing I've got.
Got it.
That was it. And so everything's squeaky clean.
And would you agree that the convictions that we just went over, you agree that those were all acts that were dangerous to the public?
Most definitely, yes.
Okay. And do you accept responsibility for each of those convictions?
100% I am, yes.
Has there been any specific event or change of circumstances in your life that have made this time around different from the previous times where you were sort of on and off the conviction path?
Yes, there is. One of the main things is I've had the health issue, And being clean has put my focus back on my life and my family. And it's like, I am so sad that I've missed out of so much, and I've rekindled this trust and this loving and kindness that I would never go back to anything like what I was doing before. Because when you're living in that addiction, you're oblivious to everything. Nothing matters. You have no feelings, no heart. And I love having the feeling. I love having the heart. I love having the relationship of being at my mom and dad's house on almost an everyday basis, being with my daughter every day, and my sister and everyone.
Do you live in Stockton now?
Yes, I do.
Is that a change of scene from where you were living at the time of all these convictions?
Yes, it's still in Stockton, but I have 100% no association with any of my past, previous acquaintances and things like that. I realize that's like getting too close to the fire. You don't want to even be around that. So I just take myself out of the realm of anything. I can see them at a gas station and say hello out of kindness, but I don't indulge myself with a conversation or anything like that. And most of the time they would say, "You want any drugs?" or something like that. And I'm like, "Goodbye, see you later." And I'm off down the street.
Besides sort of walking away, have you made any other changes to your life, specific concrete changes to your lifestyle that help you avoid those temptations?
Well, I'm involved with a elderly group. It's called Wellbe Health. I go there and I participate with their programs, helping the elderly people transition into their homes, and whatever else they need, just being in the rooms with them and helping them do their puzzles. I'm involved with the church. My phone's got nothing but gospel. I watch the TV programs at the church, so that's something I do all the time. So
When did you start working with the elderly group?
I would say it's been probably over 3 years now.
Do you still do that work with them?
Yes, I do.
Is it volunteer work or is it paid?
It's not paid, that's for sure.
And when you say you help transition these people into their homes, what kind of work are you doing specifically?
Well, it's more of like mental help. It's, and then I'm going to be asking them if they would like me to do anything more in the homes. And this is also where I go get my other type of medical treatments too. So it seems like I'm the youngest one there, but I'm always seeming to be volunteering my services to help anybody else that's there too. So we try to get there at least twice a week, if not longer.
So things like repairs, like that kind of work?
It's more like we'll be sitting at a group and these people have to do exercises and with rubber bands and things like that. And I walk behind them and I assist them, with doing this kind of things. Or they're putting together a puzzle and I try to encourage them, it's not to be so discouraged to, let's put it together. I help you put it together. So I do a lot of work with them as far as helping them. And it gives me a lot of happiness too.
What about your church involvement? Is there anything specific you'd like the board to know about?
Well, the church involvement is mostly going to the services, listening to God, trying to associate with a different group of people. I also suffer anxiety real bad. So I sometimes have difficulties with being in places such as this, and other things. So it's a little bit difficult, but I do force myself to go into those places and do what I got to do. So I know I have a long, long road ahead of me for getting rid of that. And I'm seeking out medical attention. I'm seeing not a psychiatrist, but what do you call the other lady?
Therapy?
Therapist, yeah. I'm seeing a therapist. And she's getting me more involved with outside group activities. But I see her on a once-a-week basis.
Okay, let's go into a little bit.
Times two.
Let's go into a little bit of that. So you mentioned that do you receive medical treatment now?
Yes.
What is that for?
All of it?
No. Anything that you're comfortable sharing.
Okay, I could go to, well, I'm not sure about the question, but I'll just answer it.
The question really is going to lead to what kind of medications are you taking as a result of the medical treatment? So I just want to sort of lay that out. But we don't have to go into the details of your diagnoses. Just are you getting like,
I take-
physical therapy still, like things like that?
Yes, I'm getting physical therapy. I take 7 medications in the morning. I take 7 medications in the evening. I take some medication during the day. I am probably in contact with my medical facilities probably at least 3 times a week, from Stanford Hospital to WellBe Health, which is in San Joaquin, which is my primary. I'm getting ready to go do a belly button hernia. I'm getting ready to go do, they just came in and did some back surgery or back x-rays. I have neuropathy in my leg. So there's a lot of corresponding right now, and it has been for the last 3 years with the medical industry.
So besides physical therapy, do you receive any other kinds of, like either psychological therapy?
The therapist, I see that, her, yes.
And then occupational therapy, anything that has to,
Do with the functions of
yeah.
things? We're getting in the process of doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, it starts tomorrow. And I'm going to have my first session with that person that does that type of things. And then I've also volunteered at the UOP campus for, I don't remember the name of it, but it's mental therapy, I guess. It's called, I don't remember the name of it, I'm sorry. But it's basically learning how to rethink, make your mind think again. And it's a voluntary thing that I go to, and I go to that once a week. And then it ends, and then I sign up again, and it goes again.
So is it like cognitive
Cognitive
therapy?
thinking, yeah, that's what it is. I'm sorry.
So cognitive therapy you go to once a week?
Yes.
Is that separate from the other psychological?
Yes, it is.
Sorry, is that separate from the?
It's separate, yeah.
I have to finish my question.
Yeah.
Is it separate from the psychological therapy that you go to once a week?
Yes.
And both of those things are voluntary?
Yes.
When did you start doing both of those things?
Probably 2 to 3 years ago.
And what prompted you?
Prompted me to improve myself. I mean, there was a lot of thinking things that I needed to learn how to do again. It's like, adding 1 + 1 was very difficult at one point, or 1 take away 3, or I can't even say it right now. Any of these simple little things were difficult, but the only way you're going to get better is to apply yourself. So I've signed up for these cognitive thinkings and these things I never even knew about before the strokes. I didn't know these kind of things existed, but I definitely love them, but don't like them either at the same time, because it's something I got to learn. But I do them.
Can you share with us any benefits that you've gotten specifically from the psychological therapy?
I'm here.
Can you expand a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. The psychological therapy, she's teaching me how to not get so worried. Like when I get into a room, to say, okay, this room is okay. I'm fine. There's nothing here that's going to hurt. There's nothing here that's going to hurt me. I can feel my legs. I self-talk to myself. Because of the anxiety that I go through, and so she gives me things to kind of do so that I can be better.
Okay. Having gone through that psych therapy for few years now, do any of the tips or strategies that you've learned from that, do you apply that to your sobriety?
I so don't have a sobriety issues anymore. It's like so far out there. It doesn't even cross my mind, truthfully. I know that there's, what do they call it, buttons, I guess, or something that they call them, or issues where it's like I know if I go into an environment that is not a good environment, to leave that environment. I do know things like that. So in some ways, I guess, yeah, she's touched base with some of those.
Okay.
But I know that, to me, anything to do with drugs. If I do drugs, I go to jail, that's a death sentence to me. I look at it as, because I've got so many health issues. I'm basically, I'm gonna die, so it's like, I don't have that problem anymore. Just don't. I want to live.
Okay. Currently, the medications that you take, you don't have to go over all of them. Are any of them opiates?
No.
Okay. Do
You know what pain medication, right? Nothing.
Yeah.
No.
No
They,
pain.
they give me aspirin, but that's not an opiate.
And then do you use any medicinal marijuana?
No. I've tried CBD oils on my leg, and then I've also I ordered some kind of things for diabetes, but when it came, it said CBD gummies, and I tried one, and I just got scared, so I didn't take it anymore. I hear they take them, but I can't. It worried me.
In terms of sobriety, so your last conviction was 2017. Which was for methamphetamine. So do you have a sobriety date?
It was, I can't remember, to
Okay.
be real honest. I mean, obviously, it was after that, but
Do you remember if you had a sobriety date within a year, or do you remember the year?
because of the stroke, I don't want to say because I don't know. Because things are so blurry, but obviously it was after that, some point in time.
Okay. Do you think you had a sobriety date?
Maybe.
Like a date that basically,
I mean, there
not
was
a
nothing
specific.
that was like, just like my mom's birthday, I heard somebody else say, or something like that. I just think I just decided to, you know what, this is not the life for me. This is not the kind of life I want to have. I don't want to associate with these people no more at some point.
So you had that revelation at some point. Do you remember when you had that? Maybe what year, or how long after that last conviction?
It was probably shortly right after that, I mean, it's like everybody else. When you go to jail, it's like you want to be, that's something, but
Okay. And that last conviction, you were on probation, is that right?
and I've completed all of my programs, all of my probations, and if you were to contact any of the probation officers, they absolutely love me because I've tried and I did good, so.
Okay. But the last probation, you had to do a program? Like a drug treatment program? Is that yes?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you remember, or
Whatever ones they've given me that I had to do, I've done successfully.
okay.
That I can tell you.
Okay. So you've done a lot of drug treatment programs over your convictions.
Yes.
And you found them to be helpful at the time.
Right,
You did have relapses
right.
over the course of those years.
Sure I did, yes.
Is there anything besides what you've already mentioned? Is there anything else that you can tell the board concretely that can reassure them that you're not going to fall into the same patterns, 2 years from now, or maybe not at this moment, but, sometime in the future? What is it that you're doing in your life right now that you can assure the board is different?
Well, I would say medically wise, my doctors could tell you right now exactly what my heart's doing. If I was doing any methamphetamine, they would tell me I'm out of the program, I'm done. And I know that here's what happened with my heart. When it expanded, okay, it never took the same shape. And what I found out later on is this called an ejection fraction. It's when your heart squeezes, it's supposed to squeeze out 60 to 70% of your blood. Mine was recently down to 19% over probably 3 years ago. So, I was walking around feeling really, really, not very well. In the last 3 years, I've been working really hard to get that heart back up. Just last week, I got my last echogram, and I'm back to 41%. So that's huge for me. And that's only because of good health, good eating, good diet, and this is why it's getting better. So, I don't know. So if you want to monitor me, you could ask my doctors and they could give you a printout of anything right away.
Do you currently do any NA or AA?
You know, I don't do a whole lot of that. I just didn't like the association of the people the groups that Stockton doesn't have a real, I don't know, they're kind of not too good. And I didn't like the idea for them saying once a drug addict, always a drug addict. I mean, for me, it doesn't come across that way. To me, I've changed, I'm done, it's over, never to be again, so. So anyway, so I did try those, and I did go to several of them, but it just wasn't my thing.
Okay.
More of my things is church environment, positive surroundings, good people.
Besides what you've already mentioned, do you have any other support system besides family, church, elderly group?
That is all I have, and that's all I need, and that's all I want. I mean, that is maybe someday a new wife, but that's about it.
Are those things available to you every day?
24/7, a phone call away. I don't know if I mentioned my brother-in-law's he's the senior athletic director at Stanford. Really well-to-do, always available to me. My niece is just graduated from Stanford University. She got her bachelor's, her master's at the same time. She had a 4.3 grade average. I mean, straight A's plus. My nephew is at Boston University. He's supposedly the smart one, right? But he's actually going out for the Olympic rowing team, but he's the smart one. These are the kind of people that I associate with now. My parents are actively involved with all the functions of Stockton, from the city council. She actually ran for state assembly, so she's my mom. So very positive family, very busy with all of them.
Okay, we're almost done. Let me just,
Okay.
I just need a moment. One moment, Your Honor. I just need a quick moment to make sure I've covered stuff.
While she's doing that, I'll tell you guys, when I got the cancer, my first doctor told me it was nothing to worry about. Don't be no big deal. I went back in about a month later for a flu symptom. He was on vacation. The other doctor seen the growth in the back of my leg, said I should have a biopsy done. That could be potentially something really bad. So I said, okay. So I shot to Stanford. They told me that I had malignant liposarcoma, which is an aggressive type cancer that grows in your body. The first thing they want to do is they wanted to amputate my leg from my hip down and get the cancer out of me. They didn't, at that time, we hadn't decided if I was going to do any chemotherapy or anything. We were just going to kind of just get rid of the cancer. And at first I thought that was the right way to go. It's like, you take out this cancer, you go. Then I got a call saying that MD Anderson in Houston, Texas has the highest survival rate for my type of cancer. And Sloan Kettering had the overall best, but MD Anderson had for my type of cancer. So I shot down there. They told me they wanted to give me experimental dosages of chemotherapy. Then they were going to do radiation, and then they were going to do surgery, and they didn't really know when I went into surgery if I was going to be able to have a leg when I came out, because all this cancer was all wrapped around the sciatic nerve. And I thought, well, if they wanted to do all that there, let's go to UC Davis, which is closer, and maybe I could get this stuff, same type of stuff done at UC Davis. So I go over to UC Davis, I get what they want to do, and it's like night and day differences from the other two hospitals. Some of the differences were like, Stanford's cutting off my leg. So I asked MD Anderson, well, why are you leaving this cancer in there? They said, well, you might be able to take aspirin. I can't take aspirin. You might be able to take penicillin. I can't take penicillin. So our DNAs are a lot different. Danny, if I take that cancer out of you and I start giving you this chemotherapy, how do I know if it's working, if it's gone, right? If there's nothing in your body, how do I know this one's working? I'm like, wow, that sounds right, So anyway, they watched this cancer shrink, 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 shrink. Then one of the, like UC Davis was going to administer the chemotherapy at the source of my cancer in my leg. And it sounded right. It was like they're going to get the concentrated stuff. And then I go back to MD Anderson. I says, well, why are you guys going to put a portacath in my chest and administer it through my chest? They said, well, Danny, everything from here to here is where all your vital organs are. We could put 10,000 cells on a pinhead. We want everything from here to here to be clean. You know, this just makes more sense.
So is there something related that you want to tell the board about that history that you've had, or?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
You were taking some time, so I just thought I'd entertain him.
No, it's always interesting to hear about your experience, your personal experience. How old are you, just so the board understands
20.
where you're coming from?
I am on the way to being 62.
Okay. And then I believe your mother is in the back
Yes.
with you today, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
81? 81.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lee. You okay? Okay, so now we're going to do some questioning by the board. So President Finley?
Just, I wanted to commend you on going down the right path. I
Thank
had
you.
8 questions, all 8 were answered.
Oh,
Based
wonderful.
off
Okay.
the job Lee was doing and asking, but just, I commend you on going down this path.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Smith, I was wondering if you could speak to, you mentioned that there was a point where you decided that you wanted back in. So when was that decision made in terms of wanting to petition for reinstatement? Was it, and there doesn't have to be
There
an
was
exact
something that I
date, but-
read that said that, you know, they were going to allow people to get their license after 3 years of something. I thought, what a great opportunity. And so whenever that came out in the news, that's when I decided, you know, I'd love to get back in the pest control industry, and I'm going to shoot for it. And so that's what I did.
So would you say it's been within a few years that?
It's been, yeah, because I've been struggling a lot with the medical thing, and now I feel I'm strong enough medically wise to actually be able to go back and actually be a productive part of the company.
You also mentioned during that time that you didn't see necessarily a reason to do continuing education because you weren't sure about when you were going to return.
If I was
So
gonna
is
go
it
to.
safe to say that within those few years, you didn't really see a reason for doing continuing education after you decided that you would like to repetition?
When I found out that I might be able to have a possibility, that's when I started getting where I'm trying to get some education so I could, you know, catch up to everything that I missed out on.
Okay, but you don't have any formal programs that you've undertaken, correct?
No, not at this time, no.
In terms of I know that we covered extensively your criminal background as it relates to your substance abuse, but is there anything that you can tell us in terms of, again, we're charged as a board in terms of, you know, the protection and safety of consumers, and so as it relates to any of your battery convictions, what were the circumstances of those?
Battery conviction, okay, that's an interesting one. What happened there is I had went to court, I'd come out of the court with a girlfriend. She got angry for whatever reason. She took my papers from court that I had to go sign up for this other program, and she took off with it. And she took my car keys. I walked 4 blocks trying to get these car keys. Finally, I grabbed her backpack. That's how the charges came in, because I grabbed her backpack. And so the attorney that I had said, well, it's going to be your word against her word. And this is what happened. I didn't know it at the time. But she had a witness. And she said that they look presentable. And so it's going to be a hard thing to beat. I didn't know the witness was her at this time, I found out later, it was their best friend. They'd made up this story and that, you know, but then what I did is I took the backpack, I took my keys, and that's what happened. There wasn't no battery in a bad way.
I'm sorry, I'm going to take a break for just 1 second, and I'll be right back.
I'll be back. I'll go with you.
Okay.
No, I'm just
We're
kidding.
off the record.
Okay.